the following is a quick Q&A that I did with a friend that asks me or put me to think along the lines of how do I think about my podcasting and process and how I do things on YouTube. So this might help you if you're trying to get started. You might see how I theorize or conceptualize about how I do things and in general, creative things. And yeah, I hope that this is useful, and leave me a comment if it was. Hey, it's Nono, and this is the Getting Simple podcast. All right, so this is, just to say what this is a meeting with Steve,
Yes.
right? So I'm Nono Martínez Alonso. We're just testing Riverside here, and Steve wanted to learn a few things that maybe I can share about how I do my podcast and what tools I use, and a few questions that he had. I had them written down somewhere, and we can go through them. So we were talking a bit before about the things that I have published. So for example, the podcast, the Getting Simple, the blog at sketch.nono.ma, and the YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel has programming videos, but also the podcast episodes end up there. So maybe you can tell me a bit why you want to know these things. Do you have the intention of making a podcast, or why is that you want to learn?
Yes. Well, I'll back up a little bit. I've been a musician forever. And I started collaborating with my nephew, Jason, a little bit. We decided we were going to work on a few songs. We came up with the best way to exchange files and things. Of course, he's on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast here in the U.S. And basically, I started thinking about, well, how are we going to distribute this music to other people? Not necessarily on a wide scale, but to our friends and family. And, just have it available on the internet so that it was out there. So basically, to make a long story short, I found a service that helps. They will pay the royalties to publishers of music, and that allows you to legally put up cover songs of other people's music on your YouTube channel, which is huge. So, maybe make as much as you might if you secured the rights yourself, but that's almost an impossible endeavor for a small musician. But getting over to what I started thinking, well, if we have music up, maybe this would bring people to a channel. And I started thinking about, if I had a channel, what would I offer? Obviously, we went to the music. My hope is that I can bring people in and maybe talk about what makes music such a passionate thing for people, and talk about, how to make music maybe in a way that hasn't necessarily been approached before, and, give people a little bit of history. And a big part of it for me is mental health.
Okay.
How music is something that, helps people cope on a daily basis. This is a huge topic for me, without going too much into my history, my situation.
So let me go. I'm going to open the questions, or like the things that you emailed me about, and maybe we can take a look at this. I can go one by one and say what comes to mind, or maybe something that I feel might be of help to you or to anyone. So because I have to say I give a lot of thought to many of these things that you have put here. Like they're, things don't just happen on my life. I think I think over and over and over to how I do them in terms of the podcast and producing things. The first thing that Steve says is, how do you stay motivated to regularly produce your podcast? The first thing that came to mind is this is so hard. It's really hard when it's not a job, right? Like I will say, quote unquote, real job, because you're your own boss and you have to set your deadlines. So how it works for me is that for drawing and writing and producing podcasts and things, I try to set a cadence. So more than saying I'm going to do this or this other thing, what I set up to happen is I have a weekly deadline or a monthly deadline. So I'm going to release something on the blog every month, and I'm going to release maybe something on the live stream every week, or maybe a little text with a drawing that I do every Tuesday, right? So these are kind of commitments that the more you accrue, the more you create, the harder it gets, because you're trying to push this, this train, and it starts getting more and more directions. Let's say you're pushing in many different ways. Right. And the least you have, the easier it's going to be, of course. But I try to, and the question says not how I stay regular, but how I stay motivated. And I think for me, it is feeling that even though the project has a shape that is always the same, so like a video format or like a podcast format, the motivation comes from trying different formats inside of the medium. So for example, podcasting, you said music, history, or different things. You might find that maybe one piece of content is an interview with somebody who you see as an expert, or somebody who can shed some light on your questions or the things that you're about to try. Another one might be an essay that you write, and it's a self-reflection. And the others can be a 2 or 3 week conversation with different people. So I try to do that, trying to have or keep the sense that the project is still a bit of play. And that can only come with for example, I showed you before, some podcasts before were only audio. Then I tried in-person video. Then I tried online video. So there's always, today we're trying a tool called Riverside. So every time I'm trying to introduce new pieces when I control the rest. And that gives me a bit of sense of play. That right. is my my answer to that question. I hope that helps understand a bit. I try to, the one thing that is hard is finding the time to edit, and recording is fairly easy, because at the end of the day, it feels like you're just meeting with somebody. You're just scheduling 2-3 hours or 1 hour to record, and then you get it done with. But what comes before and what comes after is the hard part, is looking who you're going to interview, preparing the topics so you don't waste their time, and the conversation is in some way interesting to whoever listens to it. And later editing. For me, the editing is just editing what has been said, not really doing editorial editing. Let's now record this other part that's going to go in between, and now we're going to remake this thing. And that's more for when you have a podcast producer that can actually be thinking as, okay, let's spend 1 week and think this podcast and see how it's going to be. I tend to just record a conversation, and if the conversation is fluid, you could say that it almost goes, and that's what we have. The other one says, what do you feel is the best way to approach people you would like to interview or connect with? This is hard when, we're so remote. And before I've found people, for example, when I lived in Cambridge, I would meet people that were interesting enough, at least to me, that I could establish a personal relationship and then ask them if they wanted to be on the show. Friends as well, because you already, if you have friends and say, okay, you should be on the show, we're going to record a podcast, and then you prepare whatever you think they're going to say and then put them on the spot. Online it's a bit different, because you need to it's harder to establish a connection. You're directly asking somebody for their time and for something that, but they don't know you. And it's really easy I mean, we get it all the time. We get spam mail or like messages.
Right.
So I think what has worked the best for me is when you go through a second person that hooks you up with another person. But in the end, I say, and this is something I'm saying to myself as well, you just should try, like, let's say if you want to interview one person, don't just go for that person. Try to put a list of 20 people that are alike and then maybe email 5 of them at a time or something, because some people won't reply. Some others will say, I can't do this right now, or I don't want to do that. And maybe somebody says yes. And then, you'll get a lot of no's. I have to say I've got a lot of no's, or like people who said yes, but then I took too long to kind of schedule a date or be sure about what we're going to talk about, and then they get busy or they change their mind. So I've lost a few leads that I said to my mind, like, how did I do this? Why didn't I record? And I could have recorded sometime later when I have time to prepare better. So I would say try not to lose leads when you have them. Like, it's better to catch something, like maybe record, even if it's like lower quality, or 20 minutes if you don't have to prepare, and then maybe rescheduling, than say, okay, no, let's do this properly when we can meet in person and we'll record like a full hour or something like that. So that would be my advice. And as I said, I'm talking to myself as well, because this is something I need to interiorize and do as well. The next question says, what methods have worked for you in attracting, building, and or sustaining an audience? All right. It took me a lot of time to understand something, and is that the best way to sustain an audience or build it is to create like a connection or a friendship or some sort of two-way connection, more than just let people follow you or like consume what you produce. So these I did through YouTube Live, because you have a chat, and while you're programming or talking or streaming, people can talk to you, and it starts, it's more a conversation more than just the concept of an audience. And also creating a Discord channel where you can continue the conversation offline afterwards, while in between content streams or something like that. So that's one thing that I learned, and those are the ones that I feel more connected to, because there's people who follow some parts of the projects, they go away for a few weeks, then they post or they ask something, or sometimes people just disappear, right? Attracting an audience in general, I think it's just putting content out there and have a way for them to show that they're following, like listening to the podcast or replaying videos, commenting, maybe subscribing, or like on social media. So there's many different ways in which people interact, but especially on podcasts, it's really silent, because they are listening to your show maybe on YouTube. They can comment, but if they listen on Spotify or Apple podcasts, there's no way to comment. There is no specific way to tell you about a moment on an episode. They can write a review, but people rarely do, I think. There is like a really small percentage. You need to have many thousands of viewers for them to actually get the time to put a review. And yeah, I think what has attracted people is that you unveil parts of the life of other people, including yours maybe, that they don't see elsewhere, right? Like something that, for example, a teacher wouldn't show while they're teaching, or like a developer doesn't show on their daily life, and you try to uncover parts of it. So what I try to tell people usually when I interview them, because I like this long form podcast format that is being popularized by people like Tim Ferriss and is now used by Lex Fridman, Joe Rogan, and other people, is the long format works in a way that you would maybe cover, but are not going to be limited to the 5-minute or 3-minute interview or 10-minute interview that like a reporter might do to you if they go to if they catch you on the street and they ask you what you do or what are you working on or things like that, right? You want to have time to past that mark of like the 20-minute kind of generic stuff that you would say to somebody if you introduce yourself, and then talk about other more mundane things, like how you organize your day to day, or how do you understand life, what do you understand as success, or what eats you, so each is you, and or what do you tinker with when you want to have fun or are just bored at home, right? So things are more personal. Things are not necessarily just what you would say at a job interview. And that is, at the end of the day, trying to uncover the authentic persona right behind a person that you see on LinkedIn or that you know at the workplace or something like that, or that you interact with online. And I think that is the only key that I have, is like people follow other people on Twitter or on Instagram or things like this to see their insights, right? To see their more private parts of their lives. And we know that, but oftentimes we forget about that. So I think, yeah, sometimes I get surprised because I'm programming and people point out, it's like somebody's looking behind your back and say like, how did you do that? How did you do that, right? What did you press to open two windows at the same time and put them in parallel? Or what program is that? Or you before were asking, what do you use to edit video? Or what do you use to... So all those little things is not so much about the output, but like the process as well that you can uncover that is usually hidden. So in my personal work, a lot of the obsession or the things that I end up sharing, and I realize after many years that that's a key part of what I do, is like unveiling the processes, right? It's a bit of like a meta process, because you are maybe making a podcast about how you make a podcast, right? Or like you're writing about how you're writing. And that's interesting to the other creatives, because as I figure out after many times, the only people who care about the creative process are other creatives on the same field or like in a similar field. And the only people who care about how people write is writers, right? And the only people who care about podcasts are other podcasters, or maybe there's curious people who just like to learn about many things, right? So yeah, that is my 2 cents on there. Like what I've seen is more about sharing authenticity and unveiling the mundane, or the things that you wouldn't discover in 5 minutes about a person.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm hoping to appeal to a fairly wide audience. So it's going to be challenging to, sort of hit that sweet spot of information that people want to consume. And, that's why I really want to focus on, of course, my goal is, helping people and really helping those who are viewing the channel to feel good about what they're seeing. And so I'm hoping that's part of the appeal.
Yeah, you touched something like your goal, right? I think that's something hard and that we're always revisiting, like usually writing like a statement of what you do is, your mission and your goal.
Right.
For me, I haven't, I've tried a few times, but I haven't really come to like an agreement on what it exactly is. Right now, the podcast description reads, Getting Simple is a podcast about simple living, lifestyle design, creativity, technology, and culture. I made it a bit wider than it was before. But in the end, what I say, why I write or why I do these things, is just to inspire others to think differently or more creatively, or to learn ways to do things that may fulfill their lives in better ways. So I think helping others, that's a good start. It's always about giving other people the gift, or the things that you maybe give for granted, but they didn't know, or they didn't think that way. I always like the possibility, because Seth Godin, I have a quote that I like from him that says like, the best stories are the stories that tell people what they already think about, right? They just reinforce that those are the ones that connect the most. It's like something that touches on the nostalgia, or like memories, or things that you already believe. The ones that are more challenging are the ones that then introduce a twist and make you think in a different way, make you change your mind or inspire to learn something that you didn't think before.
Right. Oh no, that's definitely true. And I'm hoping that obviously the jump off point is that most people love music at some level. Maybe not young people as much as, say, when some of us were growing up. I think you're a little younger than I am, but you know, it just kind of grabbing that passion that people have and pulling them a little bit closer to understanding, like, why music is so important to us as a species.
Yeah.
This is, it's kind of, it's a huge question.
Well, but that's a good
But
question. I think, like, as you posted, I think that would be like a good inspiration for a good slogan, right?
thank
Like,
you. Yeah.
why is music so important to a species? Yeah, no, I think that could be a good link. As you said, for me, I have the problem that programming is such a niche thing or like specialized field that the power in somebody who teaches programming is like to teach the hard part, but try to introduce it in a simple, easy way. I think that can be applied to everything, but I always struggled there. So if you can connect to people through music, there is somebody who, and like that anyone can understand in some way, I think that's a good starting point.
Well, I don't know if you knew, but I was a programmer for a long time. I programmed for many years, first in things like Perl and Java and JavaScript and so on and so forth, whatever the job needed. And then later in proprietary languages.
So we have here another question that is, do you know anyone who might be willing to talk with me and guide me further on the topic of producing a successful YouTube channel or podcast, especially in regards to the arts? Personally, I'm still working through that. So how to build a successful YouTube channel or podcast, right? I'm trying to grow bit by bit. I think, of course, like appealing the easy thing to getting, I think that might not be the best is like to try to catch the latest trend and cover it, right? If that's your thing, like if you do that continuously, that's good because that's your rhythm. But there is this concept that I'm talking a bit about lately that is called evergreen content. I don't know if you know what it is. So it's basically content that no matter if you watch it today or watch it like maybe in like 20 years, is going to teach you the same thing and it's still useful. So for example, knowing how to, I don't know, the recipe for making pancakes or something, that's not going to expire, right? You're always going to be able to do it. But if you tell me about, I don't know, like a guide on how to record a voice note with iPhone 6, that's already old, right? And it's going to depreciate when they change that method or something comes out. So that comes with like covering on your videos and podcasts the latest trend that is not going to be the latest trend tomorrow. And what you discover on YouTube, that's what I was going to show you, that the videos that accrue the most views are the videos of content that are maybe, in my case, programming paradigms that always stay valid and technologies that are not going to go away in many, many years, or concepts that are more math related that will stay the same. Whereas like videos that maybe touch on the latest machine learning algorithm, I've recorded those. They spike because they're on the news and stuff, and then they start like fading down. So creating things that you or anyone could enjoy regardless of time, that's a good way to start, because that means that even if somebody starts your podcast episodes in 5 years from the beginning, the content is still going to be current. And I think that's the only tip that I can give you there. I'm still trying to get YouTube, for example, to get me to the minimum amount of hours so I can monetize the channel. Monetization is really hard in this area, like unless you have somebody who can sponsor you from early stages to support the project. But to get sponsors, like I haven't still been looking for it more than referral programs that I can sign up on my own, and then if somebody registers, you get some affiliate commission. But I think it wouldn't make I'm not sure. Like with the plays and views I have right now, I'm not sure if somebody will be sponsoring me for a decent amount of money. Or even though the content that I have, right, it's some of them are really related to architecture and design and things like this. So it would make sense for some of those outlets to, or some of those types of businesses to use an outlet like mine to promote that type of material, right? So the only way that I've sort of done some, it's no sponsorship, it's more partnering, has been like me maybe getting a free copy of somebody else's book and then reading it and then interviewing them. So it works both ways. Like I get something, I get like an interviewee on the show, and then they get an outlet through which we can talk about their product. And do you have any other advice that would be helpful to someone like me? I think, like what I said before, like testing different formats and trying to, I started only with audio podcast for a reason, right? Because it's easier. Unless you don't care about editing the video, and for example, Riverside is recording for us right now, and I'm not going to have to do much. Like as I edit the podcast, the video that stays will be there and I don't have to care about it. So try to make things as raw as possible so you don't have to go and edit too much. This is something that I fail at myself because I want to have some consistent quality with the editing and the show and stuff. But for example, a recommendation could be maybe you can start Riverside or YouTube. Like Riverside has an option, you invite people, you connect it to YouTube, and you do the show live. And then your output is always the video that is live on YouTube is your output. And then you start live streaming, you record, you finish, and that's what it is. And that way, if you start that way, you'll feel like the podcast is smooth because you just have to hit record, it streams, and the video is there. Otherwise, it's more like you record, you take it to some editing program, you start making edits and putting music and doing things like that. Takes a lot of time, then you publish, upload it, blah, blah, blah. So my only advice would be start really lean so you don't have to make a lot of effort to get every piece out. Otherwise, it's going to become a dread and it's going to feel like a mandatory thing that you don't want to work on.
Okay. That's excellent advice. I really appreciate that. I
don't have all the tricks. I have a lot of gear. Like if you want to learn about gear, I can send you links and things like that. What an entry point. The entry point you already have. You're recording right now through your iPad with the camera and the microphone, so that the easiest way is just go for it. And later you can think about like maybe getting a USB mic that plugs into your computer, then maybe get a recorder with an XLR microphone that sounds a bit better, a boom arm like this one, right? Like a camera that looks a bit better.
Well, being a musician, I actually already have all of those
some stuff, right? Yeah, like that's what I thought. Like some of my friends that are musicians also have like recorders and USB interfaces and things like that. So yeah, there you go. You can use those. But again, like if you, let's say, for me, this is hard, but let's say that you want to go into recording your podcast and you say, okay, first season, we're going to do X amount of episodes. And if I can, I'm just going to use the iPad and Riverside, for example. If you limit that constraint, you're going to be able to focus a lot more on making the podcast than, okay, what software do I use to connect the microphone with my computer, with the noise reduction filter, with the camera, with the, all that stuff. That is creative friction, right? Like you should focus first on let's see what I want to create, and then later you start introducing instruments or elements.
No, that's great. That's great. I mean, I think, the danger when you're starting out, or at least when I am starting out, I'm thinking about, okay, I want to do this segment and I want to, arrange this and it's just going to be daunting when I set down to do it.
Something that helps is having an outline. Like you can take some time and try to set an outline, maybe even write a few things you're going to say. And if you have a plot, some sort of guideline of what you're going to do before you record, it makes it more succinct and clear. And then if you're live, for example, that will make you less nervous or be a bit more confident and deliver the message more clearly. That works. I mean, sometimes I've even gone so far as you write a transcript and then you kind of read it, interpret it in some way that sounds more natural, but you have there everything you wanted to say. So you just have to stick to the script, let's say, and enjoy. Like, you can introduce more things as you go, but you know where you have to go, you know what you want to convey. And I mean, those are many of my solo episodes are like that. I think you mentioned you listened to the one with habits, passions, and stuff. And in that one, for example, I didn't have a transcript. I just had like a series of bullet points of things I wanted to cover. And I improvise a bit because it's kind of like the live stream format. I'm just talking to the camera. I know that there's some people connected live. And another thing is, if you do things live or with somebody, so for example, right now I'm talking to you as opposed to recording all this knowledge or whatever share out I'm doing on my own. If I did it on my own, I would overthink it and say, okay, I talked about A and then B and then came back to A and then B and C. Why don't I write it more clearly, summarize it, and re-record everything from scratch, right? Now, after 30 minutes or an hour of recording, and say, okay, I'm going to start from scratch and do it all over again. That is not great because you start feeling the dread of like, this is too much work. This is not worth it. This is like, now I don't have the time to edit because I re-recorded. And when you finish recording, you have to go. So try to think about those things, like trying to do it as lean as possible from the beginning, so you feel it as something that happens and is not a super huge effort.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, starting simple is probably the smartest thing that I could aspire to. So
yeah, I think that's mainly it. And if you have any other questions, you can feel free to ask me.
Oh, well, thank you, Nono. I really appreciate you taking all this time to talk to me, and it's given me a lot to think about.
I didn't take any episodes down, right? I mean, if you go and listen to my first episode, that's like definitely less audio quality, and you can see my voice. I was a bit nervous, and you get to see the progression. The process, I think, is good.
I think I'll go find that now.
Yeah, episode number 1 or episode number 2 or 3 or 4. You'll see how different that is.
Did you video it at the same time, or did you just do audio?
That was just audio. I do have
audio.
Video for some of the first episode that is not out. Some like little snippets or things like that. But that would be awesome if I had that in video.
Yeah, there you go. You go back and revisit.
Okay, it was really nice to meet you. Thanks for making me think about these things as well. It's good.
Oh, yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so that was it. I hope that was useful. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time.